Yeah.
Right, welcome everybody to Spurs 95.01, a special edition with a special guest, Tei Aziz, who's a lifelong Arsenal fan, and we're here to talk about Arsenal and what it means for Spurs in terms of the current form. So I'm just going to kick off to say why are we here today, because obviously as a Tottenham fan we have faced a lot of misery in our times, and just to recap, our worst season in the Premier League, we finished 15th in 93-94 under Ozzy Ardiles, if many of you remember, the days when Tottenham had 10 strikers on the pitch, one goalkeeper, 9 strikers on the pitch, 1 defender and a goalkeeper, and I think we used to score 5 goals and let in 10. That was our worst finish. After that, 97-98, we finished 14th under Christian Gross, another pretty bad failure, and in 03-04 we were 14th under David Pleat. Since then it's been onwards and upwards, not as high as we'd like to have finished, but interesting to see that our rivals from down the road are doing worse probably now than we probably ever have been. So we're going to hand over to Tei, who's muted right now. Tei, so can you turn your volume on, and to give us a bit of his take and some stats on what the current situation is with Arsenal.
Yeah, I think before we start, you mentioned the 03-04 season. That made me chuckle a bit because that for us, that was a very, very good year, as I'm sure you remember.
Yes.
Oh, I have no memory of it whatsoever.
This season, man, like you mentioned, I think we're on course for one of those really bad ones in terms of finishing 15th, who knows, even lower. It's been really, really horrific. We've got 14 points on the board. We're 15th in the league table, being 15th for as long as I can remember now, for a good few weeks. Averaging 1 point per game. Home record 7 points. Away record 7 points. We've only scored 12. We've conceded 18. What more? What more stats you want me to bring up? It's been rubbish. Really, really terrible. This is probably the worst Arsenal squad in modern history. I can't think of a worse one. I mean, you guys have watched more football than me. Can you think of a worse team that you've seen from Arsenal?
Well, I would like to hand over to Jamal, who obviously watches a lot of teams. What do you think, Jam? Have you seen a worse squad, and what do you think has gone wrong with the Gooners here?
So a worse Arsenal squad? Absolutely not. Like in my lifetime, at least. There's a small pleasure from it, but at the same time, I growing up with you, Tei, I watched a lot of Arsenal, and a lot of my friends growing up were Arsenal fans, and I got the worst stick of it being a Tottenham fan always. But it's nice. It's nice now. I'm just gonna say it. It's nice to see you guys down there. But like your team is.
We just say no gloating now, Jam.
There's no one place to pinpoint where your downfall is. I mean, obviously, if you can go and say it's all the owner's fault. It's been coming for the last 4 or 5 seasons, I'd say. It's only has gone down since Arsene Wenger has left. But I mean, isn't it also partially the fans' fault, who also wanted Wenger gone for so long, didn't give him his last 3 seasons? They disrespected him for the last 3 seasons of his season.
Let me just bring in Steve here.
It's not just the fans, but there's also the players' mentalities. The managers they have brought in since have been poor.
Let me ask.
And I'm not saying I was expecting. I'm sorry. As one last thing, I was expecting Arteta to do well. I like him as a person, as a player, and I thought he would be a good manager. And I don't think it all comes down to him.
Steve, as a season ticket holder at Tottenham Hotspur for over 25 years, you've seen many different Arsenal teams turn up. You've seen many different players play. And one of the things I wanted to put to you, which I find very interesting if you look at it, is that teams that have had a very steady manager for many, many years, such as Alex Ferguson at Man United, and then you've got, of course, Wenger at Arsenal. Once those 2 iconic managers have left after everything that they've achieved, both teams seem to have really struggled to ever emulate those managers or get that form. I mean, you know what happened at Man United. They're on their, 3rd, 4th manager. And same with Arsenal. So what's your take on that?
I mean, I think there is an argument for consistency and sticking with your manager. We all know Alex Ferguson was 1 game away from being sacked. I think Mark Robbins scored a goal in the FA Cup that kept him in his job. I think having someone there all the time doesn't, for a long period of time, doesn't guarantee you success either. I mean, Dario Grady was at Crewe for 150 years and they haven't won the Premier League. So you have to be a certain club that can then match that commitment and And basically, Arsenal and Man United are some of the biggest. They're two of the biggest clubs in the world, so they really should. They should be doing very well, and Arsenal should be doing very well. They are still one of the biggest clubs in the world, and I think that we talked about relegation. I think that's nonsense. I don't think there's a hope in hell of that happening. But I think also when you get the success that there has been, and you have to remember, Arsenal won the FA Cup last year with not pretty much the same. Has been slightly strengthened since then. Things aren't right though when you have probably one of your highest paid midfielders not even in the squad, sitting doing nothing on £300,000 a week. It's an utter scandal. I just cannot understand it. I don't know how it's got to that, but I think Arsenal definitely will come back. I still think they have a style of play which is attractive on the eye. It's just not been very effective. We saw them have loads of possession against Spurs. We see them have loads of possession against other teams. I think they beat Man United this season away, but they can't beat Burnley.
So, Tei, coming on to that, one of the things that we've noticed this season is obviously a lot of discord in your dressing room. Arteta comes across on a screen as a very nice person. I mean, I mean, you know, I'd like to hate him as a Spurs fan, but actually,
he was a great player,
great player, and a likable person. But he seems to have this streak in him where his views with what he did with Guendouzi, what he's done with Saliba, what he's done with Ozil, the discord in the dressing room. I mean, is there something about this man's character that we probably don't see?
Potentially. I think the fundamental aspect of it is the fact that he is, this is his first job. He's never managed. I don't think he's even managed like a youth team. Or a B team or something like that. He's lacking in experience. I think there is a lack of respect with some of the senior guys who he stupidly keeps playing again and again and again, from your Willians to your Luizes, Bellerin, these players that have failed us. But in terms of more kind of broader history, you look at some of these players. I mentioned Bellerin, Xhaka. You've got the likes of Ozil, you know, sitting, enjoying his 350k a week. Kolasinac, Socrates, Mustafi. A lot of these are Wenger players. They're part of this culture of failure. And now you're seeing the consequences of that. We pay high wages compared to you guys, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that's been to the detriment of our football club.
Well. Yeah.
Exactly. And they just want to see them out. They don't want to go anywhere else. They want to live in London. They want to earn hundreds of thousands of pounds per week. Enjoy themselves on social media like Ozil. It's just it's the perfect storm. It's all just come at once, but this all started with the latter Wenger years. And I know we have a notorious reputation as Arsenal fans. Remember, there used to be fights in the stadium. I know, Jamal, you came with me a couple of times. I think when you came, Jamal, we watched Arsenal against Wigan at the Emirates, and we booed off Emmanuel Eboué at halftime.
I remember that.
I think you were booing as well.
I remember.
But yeah.
Shame on you, Jam. Shame on you.
Get caught up in the atmosphere, you know.
This all festered back then. You look at someone like Emery, who's third in La Liga now, is on a long unbeaten run. He's not a bad coach. We've had people on the board come and go, Raul Sanyehi, Sven Mislintat, but fundamentally it's the rot that sets in the Wenger years, and now you're seeing it. You can't get rid of these players, and the players are sacking managers. They sacked Wenger, they sacked Emery, and now they're doing the same with Arteta. And Arteta doesn't have a clue what he's doing.
So, Jam, as a past honorary for a few seconds Arsenal fan, do you think that Arteta is going to survive till the end of this season? Would you like them to sack the manager? Would you like to see more misery heaped upon Arsenal? How does it feel being a Spurs fan, watching your rivals suffer like this?
So, I don't know enough about Arsenal's hierarchy to say how long they're going to give Arteta. I think Tei makes an excellent point with a lot of these players are lingering over from the latter Wenger years. But who does that really fall on? Does that fall on Wenger's decision making, 6 years ago, or the people who are there saying, oh yeah, we'll happily give you 300,000 for a 6-year contract? Can those people, chairmans and managers, they're always there to sit back and not really take any of the blame and just throw at whoever's there next. But as fans, are you guys happy to continue watching this? And also with the Wenger years, he was still getting you guys into good positions. There was faith in Wenger, at least from the hierarchy, that he's going to sign the player that we need, and he's going to finish in, it's not going to be below 6th or 7th at worst.
Now they're in free fall.
Yeah.
So Steve, can I just bring in Steve here, Jam? Willian, we wanted to sign Willian. We refused to give him a 2-year contract. Do you think we dodged a bullet? Do you think that any of the players, these older players that Arsenal have gone for, such as David Luiz, Willian, and I think that they may be considering potentially someone like Ericsson, I would reject her. Would you sign any of these players? And do you think that you're glad we didn't?
I wouldn't sign any of the players. I don't think position for position, I don't think there are. I think we generally have better players than Arsenal do. I think Aubameyang and Lacazette are good strikers, but whether you'd swap them for Kane and Son, no, you wouldn't. Defensively, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think we'd any of the Arsenal players would currently get into the Spurs team, I'm afraid.
So, Tei, I just want to bring you on to moving on to that. Pepe, you paid 70+ million for him, or you still owe a lot of money on him, I think, in phases. He came on yesterday. He was completely innocuous. I mean, you give him the first season to settle in. It's always tough coming to the Premier League. This is season 2. He got himself sent off stupidly at one of the games, right? Which probably was a blessing for you in disguise because he wasn't doing very much. What's gone wrong there? I mean, isn't this what Arteta's supposed to be, bringing the best out of these players?
Well, you mentioned his price tag straight away, didn't you? So straight off the bat, he suffers because of this extortionate price tag. But then you ask yourself, why the hell did Arsenal Football Club pay £72 million for this guy? And over the past couple of years, you look at a lot of the signings and they stink, they reek. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. The guy that I mentioned, Raul Sanyehi, who was in a top job, he got promoted. He was in a top job in terms of being managing the football side of things. And in the summer, they sacked him, the American ownership, after investigating that transfer. That was one of the reasons.
Oh, okay.
But then you chuck in the Willian signing, Luiz contract extension, and you realize they've got the same agent as Edu, the Kia Jurbachian, if I said his name correctly.
The Iranian.
Yeah. So then it was kind of signings through the agents. And then you get this kind of weird scenario where instead of buying players like we need Cedric Suarez, Pablo Mari, these guys were bought in on loan for 6 months. And then you realize, hang on, they're on permanent deals. So from that perspective, there's a lot of dodgy stuff that's been going on. And the ownership, they seem to be 2 or 3 steps behind. But yeah, in terms of going back to Arteta, he has no experience. Neither does Edu, who's our kind of director of football now. And a lot of these players are Edu's guys as well. I think there's a Brazilian clique in the club. I think Arteta has very little power. You've got all these egotistical big players, World Cup winners, not even in the starting 11, but they're there and training every day. So you can't really pick up someone like Pepe, just the one player who's not performing. They're all rubbish at the moment. No one's performing. Lacazette, Aubameyang, these guys aren't bad players, but there's something stinks really badly. And it's just, as I said before, it's a perfect storm, and it's all just come at once. And you've got this guy Arteta with no experience, no idea.
So Steve, you mentioned Aubameyang. I mean, Aubameyang has been consistently one of the best strikers in the Premiership, right? Apart from this season. I mean, how do you go from scoring 25, 30 goals a season, competing with Salah, competing with Kane year on year in, what is this, your third or fourth season here, to your best goal for the season being an own goal against Burnley?
Well, he's not getting the service, is he? He's not getting the chances. Strikers are only able to score if they get the chance. And if you don't get the chance, then they're not going to score. It's as simple as that, really. It's interesting listening to the details about Arsenal, which I'm not really fully aware of. When you describe the owners, you sort of think, I'm not sure, I can't see Levy giving... letting agents get away with the sort of things it appears that they may be getting away with at Arsenal. And there's a remoteness of the ownership, but then, there's a remoteness of ownership at Spurs as well. So it's not unbelievably dissimilar, but I suppose it is if you need the structure, the management structure in there to make things work properly. Yeah, I don't know about Aubameyang. I don't know what's happened other than he's just not getting the service.
So Jamal, coming in, bringing you in on this, I know you know a bit about it, but I mean, one of the things that always strikes me about Arteta is that you've got players like Saliba. When they signed Saliba, he looked like he was going to be a really good defender, and they would bring him in. They brought in someone like Gabriel. I mean, these are players that we would technically worry about. Technically good players, played in the French league. I'm not sure where Gabriel came from, but you would have thought they would have strengthened that very, very porous defense with what's his name, Mustafi. Would you see a player like that not getting into the Spurs side? And secondly, I mean, would you see a player like Mustafi then being signed by Barcelona after his performance at Arsenal? Because apparently that is in the news today. Apparently Barcelona want to sign
Who
Mustafi.
was the last time Barcelona bought an Arsenal defender? Vermaelen, was it?
Yeah, Vermaelen.
Vermaelen was having a really rough time at Arsenal before he went on to Barcelona to have some good seasons. You know, these things happen in football, but I think what Tei said about a lot of these things I hadn't heard of, the background, the Willian signings, and there's obviously a clear Brazilian group forming there, that I'm really sure all these backroom issues are reflected on the pitch. They don't just happen overnight. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to come back to you said about are there any players in the Arsenal team you think you would get into the Spurs team? And from the highlights that I've seen, is it Tierney?
Yeah.
Who I think did he come from Celtic? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But when I've seen him, I thought, no, he looks okay, actually. His commitment, his energy, his drive. You know, sometimes I've sort of seen those highlights and he seems to be moving and the rest of the Arsenal team are in slow motion. I must admit, I haven't watched a great deal of them play, but I don't know what your views on him, whether he's been a bit of a bright spark in a pretty dark time.
Hey?
Yeah, no, Tierney's been magnificent. He's got the required attitude, that winner's mentality. He's hardworking. He seems humble. Doesn't look like he gets involved in silly stuff off the pitch. So he's definitely been a bright spot, probably along with Gabriel Magalhães, the new Brazilian centre-back.
Yeah.
But there's very few and far between. And then you're looking at someone like Bukayo Saka to carry the club on his shoulders at sort of 19 years of age. It's very difficult
right as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but just going back to the Aubameyang question, what happened to him? I'll tell you what happened to him after that Charity Shield game against Liverpool, when he scored that great goal. He signed his new contract.
Of course.
Yeah, and since then he's been rubbish. And unlike Kane, he doesn't offer much off the ball. At least with Kane, you talk about strikers and they need service, but with Kane, you've seen this season the amount of assists that he's providing off the ball. Technically speaking, he's been really, really good. Aubameyang's just done absolutely nothing. He's provided nothing to the team.
Well, that is the problem. So, just to wrap this up, though, because it's a very interesting conversation from a Spurs point of view, and hopefully, Tei, you wouldn't have thought that we've been gloating too much. But, guys, just to ask you two questions. One is, will Arsenal get relegated, and how will you feel about it? And secondly, will Arteta be fired? And if he is fired, who do you think will come in? And as a Spurs fan, should we be worried, or would we want to see Arteta stay there, lose to Chelsea, and lose a few more matches? And just on that, another point, do you think Arsenal will beat Chelsea on Saturday? So, Jams, kick us off on those three questions.
All right. So first off, I would love to see Arsenal beat Chelsea on Saturday. I don't think that's going to fix their season, and I don't think a new manager is going to fix their club just like that. They have a lot of real big issues, and I think it all does definitely stem from the top. If you compare a club like Arsenal compared to, like, not even us, but like a club like Chelsea, who is very well managed, and they know who they're going to buy, and they get their players bought quickly, and they get them bedded in within the next 2 seasons, which is not something that an Arsenal club has structured around from top to bottom. As you know, my point of view on Arsenal. Whether they'll get relegated, one can hope, but I doubt it. They're still Arsenal Football Club, and they're probably not going to get relegated.
Steve,
they're not going to get relegated. Do I want them to be relegated? Well, you'd be amazed if I said that I didn't. Spurs were relegated in 1977. I still haven't recovered from that. Yeah, no, I don't think they will get relegated. I'd like to see them. I think you need a spell outside the top level, and Arsenal have never had a period of time outside the top level. Will they beat Chelsea? I don't think so. No, I think Chelsea will win that. Were there any other questions, Kamal? There seemed to be a lot.
Arteta, will he survive? And if he doesn't, who would you like him to?
No, he won't survive. But they must be trying to line someone else up. Some of the stuff you hear from around the darker parts of the internet is that they're talking about Pochettino, which I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I have it.
Wow.
He said no to Barcelona. He's not going to go to Arsenal.
So Tei, your take on those questions?
Yeah, just on Pochettino. Why would he want to come?
Good point.
Let's talk of Allegri. Why?
Because he was sacked by Spurs. That's why.
He was on the payroll for a while, though, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. So Tei, will Arsenal be relegated? Will you beat Chelsea? Will Arteta be fired? And if he would be fired, who do you want in his place?
Yeah, I don't think we'll get relegated. Although it's worrying, West Brom have brought in Sam Allardyce, who's an expert in these situations. The next question, if we're going to beat Chelsea, I think you need to ask us, are we going to beat Brighton? That's the big one for us. Chelsea, we're not winning that. Be lucky to get a point, but yeah, we're not winning that game, unfortunately, especially not after seeing what happened last night against City. Who do we bring in? I was one that said, let's give him time. Let's see what happens. Get some players out in January. I think that's what the ownership wants to do. If we lose against Brighton and then we've got West Brom coming up soon afterwards, if we lose those games, they have to get rid of him. Who do you bring in? Probably a Rafa Benitez or someone like that, someone experienced. Perhaps do a Chelsea style, like a Goose Hiddink, come in on a short-term basis, see out the rest of the season, and then build again in the summer. But then we're just repeating the cycle.
Right. Okay, so my take on it, will Arsenal get relegated? I think that's the start of the season. You did very well when you racked up those points. When you have teams like Sheffield United getting only 2 points so far for the season, you have West Brom, which I think have only won one game so far. You've really got two of those slots taken when it comes to relegation. I mean, I know they bought Allardyce in, which is probably bad news for Arsenal because you could have probably done with him right now. And you're fighting for one spot. There are a number of bad teams there. I would have been convinced that Burnley were going down, but Burnley have just completely changed overnight. They're starting to win games. They're starting to beat big teams, and their win against Arsenal really turned their season around. I think. Fulham have been the big surprise. I thought that would be everybody's whipping boys. They were Arsenal's whipping boys in the first game. I believe you beat them handsomely, and you probably thought you were going to go on from there to be top 4. Top 2, because I mean it was a very convincing win. Yeah. I thought Fulham would just be absolutely hopeless from that, but they proved me wrong too. So will they get relegated? I think the only saving grace for Arsenal right now is the fact that there are worse teams below you. So those spots are probably already taken. So you probably will get through, because they're saying now 25, 30 points would probably be enough for this season because of the way that some of the teams are playing at the bottom. Will Arteta survive? I am surprised he's there already. And I would say this because we had Juan de Ramos, when first 6 games he lost, we got rid of him very early on, very quickly, chopped the head off, bought Harry Redknapp in, and we ended up in 8th that season, and then we went up into the top 4. And it did. But if we'd persisted with Juan de Ramos, I think we would have probably looked at relegation. We were at the bottom of the table.
Even Poch last season got relegated got axed for.
He got axed quickly. Poch, who was untouchable, got axed quickly. And I think it's about acting at the right time. And you've now gone past 13 games. You're going to be 14 by Chelsea. By the time you play Brighton, there'll be 15 games. You're really leaving it very late. And a final point is, will they beat Chelsea? I mean, I think you put your mortgage on Chelsea. I'd hate to say it. I'd like to see a draw. I'd like to see both teams lose, but that's going to be probably impossible. And I just don't know where they go from here. Would I want Arsenal out of the Premier League? Well, we need someone to hate. The only reason I wouldn't want Arsenal to be relegated is because they'll then go on and win the Championship. And get another cup. So stay bottom of the table, close to relegation for me. Right, guys. Any final points? Tei, what position do you think Arsenal will end up at the end of the season? Give us a number.
Yeah, it's difficult to say at the moment. I can see us finishing somewhere between between 10th and 13th. It'll be mid-table. It'll be comfortable.
Comfortable.
Right
Okay.
the season off.
Right.
Off.
Steve, where would you like to see them?
Where would I like to see them?
Hmm.
Well, I think I've made that clear. I think Tei's right. That's sort of where it's going to be mid-table, upper half of the table. I think.
Okay. And Jam, any final points?
If they don't make any smart signings in January and get, more importantly, they're so frustrating because you talk about making right signings, but their last two big signings other than the big money signings were Willian and Luis, and it's like, who goes to buy those people to steady a ship? And so I wish the best for them, but also I wish the worst for you guys. So
well, we haven't spoken about Thomas Partey, who
please give him time.
Gave us that beautiful goal. My final point would be, please keep Hector Bellerin. If you could get two of him, that would be really good for us. And I remember once Tei said to me he'd like to see the team built around Rob Holding. I believe the team is built around Rob Holding because he's been pretty damn poor right now. And all I can say is it's been a really interesting chat, very different from Spurs' point of view, talking about Arsenal. Hopefully, Tei, you didn't find us too disrespectful to your team.
No, thanks for the invite. It was good fun.
Thank you for coming. Very brave.
And Tei, we always finish these talks by saying, "Come on, you Spurs."
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Nice talking.
Thank you. See you later.
Right.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Hold on. Let me end the recording.